back, WNST Atlanta, Georgia, for all things Super Bowl 53. All of our coverage there will be brought to you by the folks who bring me our next guest. From LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute up at Foundry Row in Owings Mills, I have found myself there not only as a friend and as a patient now of not Dr. Kevin Crutchfield, who is our guest, but his partner in crime, Dr. Craig Bennett, who's helping me out with my elbow so I can carry my suitcase and my backpack on my left arm. And, of course, Dr. Kevin Crutchfield's making sure I don't get conked on the head. Happy day to you. You just got off the ski slopes, right? So this is a little counterintuitive that a concussion specialist would be running around on ski slopes in New Hampshire up there. Do you wear a helmet when you ski, Doc?
Of course I wear a helmet when I ski. And I also, believe it or not, I wear my ski helmet when I ice skate as well. Because if you remember a few years back, Dick Button caught an edge skating on a pond, had a massive subdural hematoma, which is a bleed into the brain. And
I knew that, but I didn't need you to say that.
Yeah, and it took a while for him to get back. And my thoughts, because I've skated my whole life, my thoughts were, if that guy who competed in the Olympics can still catch an edge and go down and whack his head that hard, who am I as a recreational skater? You know, I'm more likely to catch an edge and go down. And when you go down on ice, you go down fast. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to protect my brain. I may look like a dweeb out there, and I'm the only guy wearing a helmet. But you know what? It's what I do for a living. I use my brain. So why not protect it? So I actually wear my ski helmet when I ice skate as well.
Dr. Kevin Crutchfield, the quote, we're going to use this from now on, I may look like a dweeb when I'm doing it. You know, it's funny you'd say that because my wife has tried to get me out on the ice rink here at the harbor. Our condo looks down on it. Now they have one over at the Four Seasons on the roof, and we've had one at Patterson Park. They've had it at Rashfield. And my wife, 16 years into our relationship, doesn't believe that I can roller skate or ice skate and has been trying to get me to do the romantic, rocky, Adrian, let's go ice skate together. So now you have just completely worked on me and got me paranoid enough that I'm going to demand her Harley Davidson helmet when I go ice skating with her now.
Well, a bicycle helmet probably will suffice. If you got a bicycle helmet, you can wear that. I just happen to have a ski helmet that fits me very comfortable, keeps my head warm. The nice thing about wearing a helmet is it keeps your head really warm, and they are vented, so you don't get too hot in them. It's just a wise thing to do, and it's not that you may, even if you're an expert skier, I haven't fallen in 16 years on the slopes. But it's the kids that come down out of control, skiing fast, the snowboarders coming down fast. On the East Coast, it's so crowded on the slopes most of the time. It's just inevitable collisions going to occur, and why wouldn't you want to protect your head?
Well, I'm thinking you think the same thing when you're driving, right? You're driving along, and you're like, these people are driving far too fast, far too crazy for me. I want to stay in my lane. I would think on skis it's sort of a similar thing, especially when you're rolling on hills that a guy like me would never want to get on. It's fascinating to hear you even discuss this because as a doctor on a ski slope who has done concussion and head injury your whole life, when you're there, you see these accidents. You see people really taking tremendous risks with themselves, correct? I mean, and it's got to freak you out a little bit, right, doing what you do for a living, right?
No, I don't freak out. Because back in the day when I was younger and a lot lighter, I used to be one of those crazy people, even as a physician, doing crazy things. It's a rush. It's an adrenaline rush, and that's what they're doing it for. I was in the military. People jump out of very good airplanes.
With very good parachutes, I hope.
Very good parachutes, but they still get traumatized even in training. So the busiest head injury center in the military is down at Fort Bragg, where the 82nd Airborne is. They get a tremendous number of concussions in training. So, even though you're trained and you use some proper technique, things do happen.
Dr. Kevin Crutchfield is here from LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. They're at Foundry Row in Owings Mills. You may have seen the Cal Ripken commercials. I have seen them recently as well. We are here with the docs. We're going to join them each and every week, every other week, talking about concussion and head-related injuries as well as all things orthopedics. Right now I'm working on my left elbow. I got to pull my Stan Stasiak thing. By the way, you doctors are amazing. I mean, you give me advice. Sometimes it's a pill. Sometimes it's a knife, whatever it is. But Dr. Bennett said to me last week, I'm going to give you this thing. You're going to sleep with it, and it's going to make you feel better. And 3 days into sleeping with it on my wrist and on my elbow, I already feel better because sleeping was sort of weirding me out and messing me up. For you and what you do for a living, it's amazing how your name comes up because I had Ben Utecht on this week because of concussion, and he's out doing speeches now. He was here in town last week with Accelerant, and I brought your name up, and then he brought your name up. It's amazing what a space it is that you work in, that when football players have concussion-related injuries, they seek you or people like you out, and a dozen years later, he's out living his best life, and I know he's become a buddy of yours. You've touched a lot of people in this space, Doc. I mean, one of them that I found on Monday morning here.
Yeah, I met Ben at the NFL Players Association Health and Safety Committee. I'm a charter member of the Mackey White Committee. I was the first neurologist picked at that time was the Mackey White Head and Neck Injury Committee, and that was to develop a panel of experts that manage head injury and neck injuries to delve into what's really required with regards to safety in playing sports, so that the players' union, during their last collective bargaining agreement, could bring forth all of these issues and make the game safer. So I met Ben on that committee, and we've become good friends. Ben is a great guy. I don't know if you know this, but he writes music and sings and records.
Oh,
He's a recording artist.
I hit him up about that. I mean, he said he was a classically trained singer, and I mean, I Googled him when he was in town last week for Accelerant, and I said to my wife, he's standing in front of a quartet of jazz musicians singing Adele songs and doing it very aptly, I might add. Yes.
Oh, he's incredibly talented. He's like Justin Tucker, He's was not only a gifted athlete playing, I think he was tight end for the Colts when they won the Super Bowl.
He was.
So he was there with Peyton Manning, a gifted athlete, a good-looking guy, and can frickin' sing. I mean, how many gifts can God give one individual?
Well, he gave him 45 minutes in front of 500 business leaders here with Accelerant last week, and he did a bang-up job. I'll share the notes with you, Doc. Dr. Kevin Crutchfield here, the concussion and head-related specialist for all things out at LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute in Foundry Row. We tell you about them all the time. You can trust them and the experts for all of this. So here's where I need your advice, okay? So you and I have had some wonderful conversations, not just on the air, out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. We chatted last week. My wife and I were out there. My wife, we're going to get her over Parisi, and she's going to be running a half marathon here later in the year. She's actually literally on the treadmill right now as we speak. But I go to the Super Bowl. This is my 26th year going to the Super Bowl, and every year the last 15 years, someone like Ben Utecht or someone like Dr. Kevin Crutchfield, either a doctor or a patient, a football player, an agent, a former player, John Mackey, Sylvia Mackey, parading around Radio Row year after year, talking about injuries, the head, the neck, helmets, player safety, survivors, all of this, concussion, the movie. So when it comes to me in Atlanta 2 weeks from now, I'm 15 years into this. We're 5 years removed from the movie and Will Smith and all of that. What should I be talking about, Doc? What's going to make me the smart guy at the party when more guys like you come up to me and sit down next to me, and we're going to be talking about these very, very important issues one-on-one on video cams in Atlanta? What would make me smarter? Give me a couple little talking points if you were the host of this 2 weeks from now.
Well, we've been talking about relatively the same issues now for the past 10 years. The smart question that I ask everyone, and you can just be my voice out there because I'm not going, what's next, right? What is the next step in these disease processes, the slow degeneration of the brain, the CTE, and the ALS. Let's not forget that. The cervical spinal cord and brainstem get traumatized, and these athletes are developing a post-traumatic ALS. And
yeah, I mean, I'm with OJ. I see him once a month. I mean, I ran into Chandra in the supermarket the other day in the produce aisle. I see them, and I used to look at OJ and think, what an unfortunate thing that thing happened. And now I think 15 years later, we look at it and say that's a football-related injury. I mean, in my mind, that's not just something that happened to his genetics and Gleason, and I think our minds have moved on that from something that just happened to this unfortunate football player. That's something that football created.
Well, I wrote a piece a couple years back for Stan Charles in the press box, and the title was, "Did Lou Gehrig really have Lou Gehrig's disease?" And, what you're talking about, the genetic, the familial ALS, that is not a trauma-related injury. But Lou Gehrig had several concussions and documented injuries, and he developed ALS. And my hypothesis, because I never, knew Lou Gehrig or examined him,
sure,
is that he had a post-traumatic form. So I think the pure Lou Gehrig's disease is a post-traumatic ALS, and the other one that looks like Lou Gehrig's disease is a separate but similar disease process, meaning the end game is the same with this chronic degenerative condition secondary to inflammation of the cells that then transfects the neighboring neurons and kills them. And it just happens to be in a specific location in the brainstem and spinal cord to lead to this condition that we all called Lou Gehrig's disease because we first all became aware. It'd been around for a long time, but society became aware because one of the top baseball players' career was over because he developed this.
You say, what is the next step? What's the next thing? That's a great question, I think, for a doctor like you to say, on the medicine side, what's the next step? Usually in the football space, when I'm sitting at the Super Bowl, it's what's the next step? What's the league going to do? What's the rules going to do? What's the helmets going to do? What are we going to do for 12-year-old kids playing football and having the helmet that pops out with a little red tab and says, or the mouth guard? Now I had Chris Redman on 2 weeks ago talking about mouth guards, and when your body temperature hits a level, the mouth guard will go red, which may or may not have made a difference in the case of Jordan McNair and how he was handled down at College Park last summer. But the next step, I think there's a medical side for people smart like you, and then there's what are we doing on the football side to make football better?
Well, you are making the assumption that those two things are mutually exclusive. There is a ton of overlap, and if more than just the docs start saying, what's the next step, and the media is out there popularizing the question, what's the next step, you force the hand of the people funding the research, you force the hand of the NFL and their funding mechanisms to fund the research. And, it doesn't help that a guy like me goes to a medical conference and asks what's the next step because, it's just a bunch of docs that go home and we're not making a difference. But the media has more of an impact on the league when everyone in the media starts asking what's the next step in these diseases. You get the ear of the league and they start saying, yeah, what are we funding? What is the next step? We need to go back and ask questions of the researchers, what's the next step? I want everyone asking that question, not just the medical community. I think that's the most important thing moving forward to keep our game safer, because if we figure out the underlying mechanisms of these disease processes, we might be able to predict who's at risk and who's not. Keep our game safe, because I will tell you, we are down a path of ending these contact sports if we don't go the next step. So it's not just a medical question. It's a survival of the leagues. It's a survival of these sports, because if we don't figure out the next step, how do we predict who's going to get this disease better? I think it's Armageddon for our contact sports.
Well, I'm not going to talk to you again until after the Super Bowl, and I'm going to wind up having, what's going to amount to a couple of hours of conversation about this with various players, and, some of it is, emotional distress and, PTSD from football, and part of it's the separation of not being on a team anymore and not making the money and not catching the football and not being in the limelight. So I'll see all of these tragedies and relive these glories again. So if you were the doctor sitting there and I'm asking you the smartest question, what is the next step? What would you say if you're sitting next to the football player 2 weeks from now, and I say to you, what would you like to see done next other than flag football, which, I guess that would be the safest way to do that, and even that's not safe, right? Rugby does that.
I mean, there's always going to be collisions when two people are running full speed. So, they're not purposefully colliding, and sometimes the accidental collisions are more serious than the purposeful ones. So, you're trying to protect yourself when you know you're going to hit someone. If you don't know you're going to hit someone or something, like a wall or, another car on the highway, you're not really protecting yourself. So those injuries, at least in my clinical experience, may be worse. I call it the unpredicted hit because you're not bracing yourself for the impact.
Doc, I appreciate you, as always, educating us around here. We're going to send everybody out to see you. If you have any issues in concussion and head-related injury or in that space, I've had friends of mine have this happen, certainly automobile accidents. We talked a little about skiing and winter sports. You've got friends at the LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. Always there for you, a state-of-the-art facility right in Owings Mills. You may have seen Cal Ripken out on the TV commercials. We've had the docs here. Dr. Craig Bennett will join us next week, and we bid Dr. Kevin Crutchfield adieu. You've prepared me wisely for Super Bowl 53, Doc. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Dr. Kevin Crutchfield from LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute, our partners and sponsors here. They are the new game plan for all of your health-related needs and weekend warriors, and there are many of you, especially when the weather gets to break here a little bit. I am Nasty at WNST.net. We're also out in the buy, Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships digitally to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Talk about staying in shape. Get the best shape of your life. Get inside while it's cold out. It's $1 down and $10 a month to start the new year. It's always $5 down and $10 a month. You can always learn more at planetoftriumphs.com to get the inspiration. There's a Planet Fitness right around the corner from you, and they're always judgment-free. Don't forget, Laurel Park open on the weekends as well. They are racing there weekend after weekend, and of course, the entries at WNST.net as well as in our morning newspaper. Make sure you get down to Laurel Park and see the remodeled, renovated and rejuvenated Laurel Park. You won't recognize it if you get there. It's beautiful. Get down there. Check it out. Last but never least, our breaking news text service is always there. If anything weird happens, at some point Joe Flacco is going to get traded, and you're going to look down on your phone and see that. It's all going to be brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford, Security Boulevard. Dennis Colazzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. It is the SSV on WNST. I'm going to join Dennis in the 4 o'clock hour as well. We're 2 weeks out on getting to Atlanta for Super Bowl 53 coverage. All of it will be brought to you by our friends at Strategic Factory, creating your masterpiece. And, of course, they're up in Owings Mills as well, giving us the hats and the shirts and the printed materials that help make my company great, that can help make your company great, or even your softball team. Whatever you need, they give you the marketing advantage of Strategic Factory. They put the whole thing together for you and deliver it. Strategic Factory. Nasty at WNST.net is the best way to find me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.